The body in the lighthouse basement had been waiting 5 years to tell its story. 12 hours earlier, Jake Morrison descended the rusted spiral stairs of Beacon Hill Lighthouse, flashlight cutting through darkness. October meant inspection season. The limestone walls wept condensation, creating patterns that looked almost like words. This section, sealed since the 1990s, had just been approved for renovation. The crowbar felt heavy as he pried open the storage door. Wood splintered, revealing a narrow chamber. His light swept across dusty navigation equipment, then stopped. There, wrapped in maritime canvas and rope, was something human-shaped. Before we start the story, write what city you are from. We are very interested in where you are watching our video from. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. "I found something in the lighthouse," Jake told the dispatcher. "You need to come now." Detective Patricia Chen arrived within the hour, her sedan struggling up the coastal road. 15 years with Maine State Police, but lighthouses still made her uneasy. Jake met her at the entrance, pale despite the ocean breeze. "It's Professor Whitmore," Jake said. "Edmund Whitmore." Everyone knew about the professor who'd vanished in 2019. Marine biologist, climate researcher, father of 2. His car had been found at Prescott Beach, 3 miles south. Everyone assumed he'd been swept out to sea. The basement told a different story. The body, remarkably preserved by the basement's unique mineral composition, was indeed Edmund Whitmore. But he hadn't drowned. The medical examiner found blunt force trauma. This changed everything. Patricia stood in the lighthouse's makeshift command center, studying 3 files. 3 people had been close to Whitmore. 3 people with reasons to want him gone. Dr. Marcus Chen sat in his university office when Patricia called, Whitmore's research partner and bitter rival. Their joint research had been groundbreaking until Whitmore disappeared. Chen had published 3 major papers since, all solo-authored. Edmund was brilliant but reckless, Chen told Patricia. That night he disappeared. We'd argued about data interpretation. He stormed out. Chen's office was meticulous. Photos from conferences lined one wall, but in every photo with Whitmore, Chen stood apart, smile forced. "Where were you that night?" "Boston, academic conference, 200 witnesses." Chen showed his phone with the conference program. "I presented at 9 p.m. Edmund disappeared around midnight." But something felt rehearsed. His hands trembled as he put the phone away. "Edmund was planning to retract our paper," Chen admitted. "Said there were irregularities in my data. Would have destroyed my reputation." Patricia noted the motive. She collected Chen's conference materials, noticed a receipt from a Portland gas station dated that night. Portland was halfway between Boston and Beacon Hill. Sarah Whitmore worked at the Lighthouse Visitor Center, giving tours above her father's hidden grave. When Patricia found her, Sarah was explaining lighthouse history to tourists. "My father and I weren't close," Sarah said after the tourists left. "Mom died when I was 15. Dad buried himself in work." But personnel records showed Sarah had started working here just 2 months before her father disappeared. "You have a key card for the entire facility." "All senior staff do. I was home that night watching movies with my roommate." The roommate confirmed this, but seemed nervous about the exact time. Sarah had inherited her father's life insurance, nearly $1 million. "He controlled everything when Mom was alive," Sarah said bitterly. "Turned her death into a research project, documenting everything like she was one of his specimens." Patricia noticed Sarah touching a locket. Inside was a photo of her mother, with someone's hand on her shoulder ring, was different. Captain Thomas Brennan had been lighthouse keeper for 30 years before retiring. He'd discovered Whitmore's abandoned car, helped with the search. A community pillar, former Coast Guard. "Terrible business," Brennan said at his cottage. "Edmund was a good man, too dedicated maybe." His home was filled with maritime memorabilia. He moved slowly, making tea while Patricia questioned him. "You found his car?" "Morning walk. Door open, keys in ignition. I knew something was wrong. Brennan had an alibi. Coast Guard reunion 50 miles away. Photos showed him with his unit at midnight, but in one photo, Brennan's watch showed a different time than the timestamp, 2 hours off. You knew the lighthouse better than anyone. Every stone. That basement, though, we sealed it in the 90s. Nobody's been down there in decades. But Jake had mentioned the seal looked newer than it should. Fresh scratches on old rust. As Patricia interviewed each person, patterns emerged. Chen's conference had a gap from 8 to 10 p.m. Sarah's roommate had been drinking. Brennan's reunion photos showed him in different clothes in sequential pictures. The basement yielded more evidence. Whitmore's waterproof case contained encrypted USB drives and a partially destroyed journal. One entry stood out. The truth about 1987 must come out. M knows. S suspects. Only T remains in the dark. Patricia pulled university records. 1987, a data falsification scandal had rocked the marine biology department. David Park had taken the blame, later died by suicide. But whispers suggested Park was a scapegoat. Chen had been a graduate student then. Sarah's mother had been a research assistant. And Brennan? He'd been dating someone in the department. Linda, Sarah's mother. Whitmore's damaged phone showed his last text. Meet me at the usual place. We need to discuss what you did to her. Sent at 11:47 p.m. But to whom? The forensics team found crucial evidence. Maritime rope discontinued in 2018. The Coast Guard had been the last to use it. Chen wouldn't have access. Sarah was too young. But Brennan? Patricia returned to the lighthouse at sunset. Jake Morrison was adjusting the lens mechanism. Did Captain Brennan ever come here after retirement? All the time. Helped with maintenance. Had keys until last year. But the basement lock hadn't been changed. Brennan still had access. The encrypted drives were being processed. There's video files here, the tech specialist said. Hidden camera footage. The first video showed Chen at a research station, proving his alibi. The second showed Sarah arguing with her father about money for her mother's memorial. The third file, corrupted but recoverable, showed the lighthouse basement. A figure moving in darkness the night Whitmore disappeared. Patricia called for backup and headed to Chen's apartment. His car was gone. Neighbors said he'd left with a suitcase. We found something, an officer reported. Forged conference registration. He never attended. Chen's credit cards placed him in town that night. Security footage showed him driving toward the lighthouse at 11 p.m. His alibi was destroyed. Patricia stood in Chen's apartment, something nagging at her. Too obvious. The forged registration in plain sight, like someone wanted Chen caught. Her phone rang. Jake Morrison, panicked. Sarah Whitmore is here, in the basement, says she knows who killed her father. Patricia raced to the lighthouse. Sarah stood where her father's body had been found, crying. It was Marcus Chen, she said, holding out a worn notebook. Mom's journal. She knew about the 1987 scandal. Chen was the real falsifier. Dad was going to expose him. The journal detailed Chen's deception, how Park had been framed. But the pages looked too worn for recent discovery. Sarah, who took this photo of your mother? What does that matter? Chen killed my father? Patricia studied her face. The grief seemed real, but grief could mask other emotions. When did you find this journal? Last week. But the pages suggested years of handling. Sarah was lying, footsteps on the stairs. Captain Brennan appeared, concern on his weathered face. Heard there was trouble. He stood beside Sarah, protective. Patricia noticed Sarah relax at his presence. Captain, you said you hadn't been in the basement since the 90s. That's right. Then how did you know about the structural damage? Brennan's expression didn't change. Common knowledge. But Patricia had checked. No records mentioned structural damage. Brennan was lying too. Her phone buzzed. The tech had recovered more video. The figure in the basement was clearer. Medium height, careful movements, familiar with the space. Patricia looked at the three suspects. Chen was missing, but his guilt seemed manufactured. Sarah held her mother's journal, story full of holes. And Brennan, helpful Brennan, who'd guided the investigation from day one. "I need all of you at the station," Patricia said. As they climbed the stairs, Patricia noticed a nautical clock stopped at 12:17, the exact time Whitmore's phone went dark. But it was battery-powered. Why had it stopped? Unless someone wanted to mark the exact moment. The lighthouse beam swept across the ocean as they left. Patricia knew she was close to the truth, but the truth was more complex than she'd imagined. The interrogation rooms at the state police station separated the three suspects. Patricia started with Chen, who'd been caught at the Canadian border. The conference registration was forged, yes, Chen admitted, fingers drumming the metal table. But not for murder. I was in Montreal with Professor Angela Hui. We're having an affair. She's married to the dean. Phone records confirmed calls to Montreal. Hotel records under Mark Chang matched Chen's credit card. The alibi was compromising, but solid. The 1987 scandal. Sarah claims you were the real falsifier. Chen laughed bitterly. I was 23, a nobody. The falsification required access I didn't have. Patricia checked the digitized 1987 access logs. Chen was right, but 3 cards showed after-hours entry. David Park, Linda Whitmore, and surprisingly, visitor passes for Thomas Brennan over 6 months. Brennan wasn't in academia, Patricia said. He was dating Linda. They'd used the department lounge for privacy. Everyone knew. Patricia moved to Sarah's room. The young woman sat straight-backed, clutching her mother's journal. Your key card accessed the basement 6 times before Jake's discovery. Sarah stared at the evidence. Impossible. I lost my card months ago. But there was no replacement request recorded. This journal has been read hundreds of times over years, not just last week. Sarah's hands tightened. Mom gave it to me before she died. I couldn't read it until after Dad disappeared. The night your father vanished, your roommate says you watched The Lighthouse and Shutter Island. Interesting choices. Sarah's eye twitched. Coincidence. Your father's text. We need to discuss what you did to her. Was that about your mother? Chen controlled her medication, experimental protocols. Mom died because of him. But Patricia had checked. Linda's treatment had been standard. Another lie. In the third room, Brennan sat comfortably. Your reunion photos show different clothes. Spilled beer? Changed shirts? The timestamp discrepancy? Photographer's camera was set wrong. But in one photo, the moon position outside was impossible for midnight in Bar Harbor. The photo was taken elsewhere. Tell me about Linda Whitmore. Brennan's expression softened. Beautiful woman, trapped in a loveless marriage. You were having an affair. 35 years ago. Edmund knew. Didn't care as long as Linda kept up appearances. The 1987 scandal? Before my time with Linda. Another lie. Visitor logs showed Brennan throughout 1987. We recovered video from Edmund's hidden cameras. Brennan's comfort evaporated. The partially recovered file showed a figure with Brennan's distinctive gait, favoring his left leg from an old Coast Guard injury. The rope around Edmund's body. Coast Guard issue, discontinued 2018. Lots of people have that rope. You told Jake about structural damage that was never recorded. You sealed that basement yourself after putting Edmund there. Brennan leaned back. Prove it. Patricia returned to the main room where her partner was reviewing the decrypted drives. You need to see this. The video showed Edmund in the basement at 12:03 a.m. with 2 figures. The conversation was audible. You killed her, Edmund's voice. The treatment protocols, the false data. You killed Linda." "She was dying anyway," a voice replied. "Chen's height. You accelerated it for your paper." "Our paper. You signed off." A struggle. Then a second person moved from shadows. Brennan's build. "Enough," the second figure said. "This ends now." "Tom, what are you doing here?" "Protecting my family." "Sarah's not your family." "She's all I have left of Linda." The video corrupted, then cut. When it resumed 3 hours later, the basement was empty. Two killers working together? Patricia ordered arrests for both men. But something nagged her. The convenient corruption at the crucial moment. The clear voices, despite distance. She checked metadata, files created 5 years ago but recently modified. "Check Sarah's computer," Patricia ordered. Her phone rang. Jake Morrison at the lighthouse, panicked. "Someone's in the basement." Patricia and her partner raced there. Jake stood at the entrance, shaking. "I heard voices, but everyone's at the station, right?" They descended with weapons drawn. In a newly exposed chamber was an office setup with computers and research papers. Standing at the computer was Jake Morrison, but Jake was behind her. She turned. The Jake at the entrance was gone. "Turned back, twins. I'm Jake. He's Jason. We've been switching shifts for 3 years." The second Jake blocked the exit. "Nobody noticed. Lighthouse keeping is solitary work." "Why?" "Edmund Whitmore destroyed our father, David Park." The pieces clicked. The Morrison twins were Park's sons, orchestrating everything. "But who killed Edmund?" Jake laughed. "Does it matter? Chen wanted him dead. Brennan wanted him dead. Sarah wanted him dead. We just facilitated." "You brought them together?" "Sent messages from each of their phones. Got them all here that night. Then watched." "The video?" Jason tossed her a USB. "The real one, not our edited version." The twins surrendered without resistance. As they were led away, Jason called, "Our father was innocent. They all knew, but let him die anyway." Patricia loaded the USB. The complete video showed all 3 suspects with Edmund at 12:03 a.m. "You destroyed my mother," Sarah said. "You're destroying my career," Chen added. "You destroyed Linda," Brennan growled. Edmund backed against the wall. "I have evidence about 1987, about all of you." "Linda was the real falsifier," Edmund continued. "She altered data for cancer research funding. She was already sick, desperate. David found out, threatened exposure, so you all protected her." Sarah's young voice. "She was trying to save her life." "She was stealing research funds." The struggle began. Chen pushed Edmund first. He stumbled toward Brennan, who shoved him back. Sarah stepped forward with something in her hand. Then darkness. Sounds of struggle, a cry, silence. When lights returned, Edmund was on the floor. All 3 stood in shock. "Who?" Chen started. "I didn't," Brennan said. "Is he?" Sarah whispered. Without speaking, they acted together. Chen checked for pulse, shook his head. Brennan grabbed rope. Sarah opened the door she'd discovered weeks earlier. Together they hid the body, created alibis, kept the secret. But who struck the fatal blow? Patricia studied frame by frame. In darkness, thermal imaging showed 4 heat signatures moving. But there was a 5th signature hidden, small. When lights went out, this figure moved quick and precise, then retreated. She checked access logs. 4 cards that night, plus a maintenance override code. Only 3 people had such codes 5 years ago. The director in Europe, Brennan, logged separately, and Jake Morrison, who wasn't supposed to start for 6 months but was doing volunteer maintenance. But the thermal signature was too small for either twin. 5 feet, 110 pounds. Patricia pulled birth records. David Park had 3 children, Jake, Jason, and Jennifer. Jenny Park, who disappeared after her father's suicide. The lighthouse had a part-time cleaner, Jennifer Morrison, Hired 3 years ago, same as Jake. Never worked when visitors were present. Jake and Jason were in custody, but Jennifer was missing. Her apartment was empty except for a photo of David Park with his children. On the back, they all killed him. So we killed Edmund. Justice. The Morrison siblings had orchestrated everything. Jake found the body. Jason edited evidence. And Jennifer struck the fatal blow when everyone else was struggling. But there was more. Patricia reviewed Linda Whitmore's medical records. Her initial cancer diagnosis came from a private lab where David Park had worked. Linda's first diagnosis was wrong. She didn't have cancer then. The false positive led to aggressive treatment that destroyed her immune system. When real cancer came later, she had no defense. Who ordered that test? Edmund Whitmore. Who performed it? David Park. Everyone was guilty of something. Chen had falsified data. Brennan had intimidated witnesses. Sarah had destroyed evidence. The Morrison siblings had committed murder for revenge. Patricia found Jennifer Morrison at the lighthouse, dead by suicide. Her note: "The lighthouse sees everything. It saw my father's innocence. It saw Edmund's guilt. It saw justice being served." With the note were coordinates to a hidden drive containing Jennifer's audio diary. The recording from the night Edmund died was crystal clear. Not from the basement, but from the lamp room where Jennifer had been hiding. Edmund's voice: "Thank you all for coming. We need to talk about what we did to David Park." The conversation revealed Edmund had discovered someone altered Linda's medical records to show false cancer. The treatment killed her immune system. "One of you murdered her," Edmund said. Then Jennifer revealed herself. "You're all wrong. My father didn't kill himself because you framed him. He killed himself because he did falsify Linda's diagnosis, on Edmund's orders. You tried to murder your wife, Professor. Dad couldn't go through with it. Switch the samples back. Linda's cancer was real. The guilt destroyed him." In the darkness and chaos, Jennifer had struck Edmund with a maritime compass. The others, thinking they'd accidentally killed him, covered it up. Patricia found one more recording. David Park before his suicide. "Edmund Whitmore asked me to falsify his wife's medical records. He wanted her gone, but not suspicious. I agreed for career advancement, but I couldn't do it. I switched samples back. Her cancer was real. Edmund never knew I'd failed him. When the data scandal broke, Edmund pointed everyone at me. I couldn't defend myself without admitting to attempted murder, so I'm taking the only way out." Edmund had tried to murder his wife, but failed. David had killed himself over guilt for something he didn't do. The Morrison children had spent their lives planning revenge for the wrong crime. 3 weeks later, Patricia received a package. Thomas Brennan's personal logs from 1987. October 14th. Linda came crying. Edmund knows about us. October 15th. Linda says Edmund planning something. I signaled danger with the lighthouse beam. October 16th. Linda's diagnosis, cancer. Edmund seemed surprised, then pleased. October 17th. David Park falling apart. Said Edmund made him do something terrible. October 18th. Park dead. Suicide. Edmund's doing. Final entry: Edmund killed them both. Can't prove it. Someday, someone will. Brennan had known all along but stayed silent. The case closed with simple facts. Jennifer Morrison killed Edmund Whitmore in revenge. Co-conspirators charged accordingly. But the truth was complex. Edmund tried to murder Linda, but failed. He successfully drove David to suicide. Everyone was both guilty and innocent. 6 months later, Brennan died of a heart attack near the lighthouse. Sarah moved to California, became a therapist. Chen lost everything, served 2 years. The Morrison twins were released after 18 months, disappeared into new identities. The lighthouse was converted to automatic operation. No more keepers, just the mechanical rotation of the beam. Patricia never returned, but sometimes checked the webcam. The beam would sweep past, regular as clockwork. except sometimes it would pause, just for a moment, as if remembering. Patricia stood at the lighthouse entrance at dawn, the USB drive Jennifer Morrison had hidden, still warm, in her pocket. The suicide note had contained coordinates pointing to a maintenance panel. Inside, along with the drive, was a photograph. David Park with Judge Harold Morrison, the twins' adoptive father. The drive contained 30 hours of audio. Jennifer's voice, documenting everything. Day 1-847. Jake confirmed Edmund Whitmore still visits the lighthouse, still searching for evidence about Mom's death. He doesn't know what really happened in 1987. Patricia fast-forwarded through years of surveillance. Then she found it, a recording from the night Edmund died, from the lamp room where Jennifer had been hiding. 11:45 p.m. Edmund's voice. Thank you all for coming. I know my messages were cryptic, but I needed you all here. Chen. This is insane, Edmund. Not insane. Intervention. We need to talk about David Park. Sarah. Dad, why am I here? Your mother was murdered, not by cancer, by one of us. Brennan. You're grieving. Linda died naturally. No, someone altered her medical records. The treatment killed her immune system. The sound of papers rustling. Edmund. I have the original lab reports. David Park didn't destroy them. His children found them. Chen. What do they show? Linda was perfectly healthy initially. The cancer diagnosis was fabricated. Then Jennifer's voice, soft but clear. You're all wrong. Who are you? Edmund asked. David Park's daughter. My father didn't kill himself because you framed him. He killed himself because he did falsify Linda's diagnosis. On your orders, Professor. Lies, Edmund spat. I have his confession. But here's the thing. My father switched the samples. He couldn't go through with it. Linda's cancer was real. You tried to murder your wife, but failed. The lights went out. Struggle. A sickening thud. Under the chaos, Jennifer whispered, For you, Dad. Patricia stopped the recording. Another file was labeled Truth, 1987. David Park's voice, days before his suicide. Edmund Whitmore asked me to falsify his wife's medical records. She was leaving him. He needed her gone. I agreed for career advancement, but I couldn't do it. I switched samples back. Her cancer was real. When the data scandal broke, Edmund pointed everyone at me. I couldn't defend myself without admitting to attempted murder. To my children, Edmund Whitmore is evil. Don't forgive. Don't forget. Patricia returned to the station. Chen had confessed to data falsification. Brennan to intimidating witnesses. Sarah to destroying evidence. Each thought they were protecting others from a murder charge. But Jennifer Morrison had killed Edmund. Premeditated, hidden inside chaos. Sarah Whitmore waited in interrogation. Your father tried to kill your mother, Patricia said. She played David Park's confession. Sarah listened, tears streaming. He loved her, Sarah whispered. Guilt can look like grief. He grieved for what he'd tried to do. Then Mom died naturally? Yes, your father's attempt failed because David Park couldn't go through with it. Sarah laughed bitterly. So we covered up a murder that was actually justice? Within hours, lawyers arrived. Chen would serve 2 years for research fraud. Brennan would get probation. Sarah would receive community service. The Morrison twins would be charged with conspiracy and evidence tampering. Without Jennifer, the murder charge would likely be dropped. Patricia stood in the lighthouse one last time as sunset approached. She thought about Jennifer's final recording. They say justice is blind, but the lighthouse sees everything. I'm not sorry. Edmund deserved to die, not for Linda's death, which he failed to cause, but for my father's death, which he successfully orchestrated. Truth isn't singular. It's layered, complex. Everyone in this story is both guilty and innocent. My name is Jennifer Park Morrison. I am a murderer. I am justice. I regret nothing. Patricia walked to her car as the lighthouse beam began its nightly rotation. The case was closed, but nothing felt resolved. Her phone buzzed. A new case. Judge Harold Morrison, the twins' adoptive father, found dead in a library. She looked back at the lighthouse, its beams sweeping past her. Jennifer had said it sees everything. But lighthouses don't see. They only illuminate briefly, leaving more in darkness than light. 3 weeks later, Patricia received a package. No return address. Brennan's personal logs from 1987, October 15th. Linda says Edmund planning something. Stop the beam to signal danger. October 16th. Linda's diagnosis. Cancer. Edmund pleased. October 18th. Park dead. Edmund's doing. I know Edmund killed them both, but can't prove it. Brennan had known all along, spent 5 years helping cover up the murder of a man he knew deserved to die. Patricia filed the logbook. The official report. Jennifer Morrison killed Edmund Whitmore in revenge. Case closed. But the real truth was complex. Edmund tried to murder Linda, but failed. He drove David to suicide. David agreed to murder, but backed out. Linda knew about falsification, but stayed silent. Brennan knew Edmund was a killer, but did nothing. Chen falsified data for advancement. Sarah destroyed evidence for her mother. Jennifer committed the only successful murder. She killed a man who deserved to die. 6 months later, Brennan died of a heart attack near the lighthouse. Chen served his time, lost everything. Sarah became a therapist in California. The Morrison twins were released after 18 months, disappeared. The lighthouse was automated. No more keepers, just mechanical rotation. 5 years later, Patricia received an email. Check the lighthouse basement again, behind the north wall. David Park. Impossible. But she got permission to enter one last time. Behind the wall, in a space unopened since the 1980s, was a metal box. Documents, photographs, and a USB drive that shouldn't have existed in 1987. The documents revealed the 1987 scandal was bigger: human experimentation, illegal drug trials. Edmund Whitmore at the center. Linda had discovered it, was going to expose him. When the false diagnosis failed and real cancer emerged, he ensured ineffective treatment. David Park hadn't killed himself. Photos showed evidence of struggle. Edmund had murdered him, staged the suicide. The USB contained security footage from 1987, showing Edmund entering David's apartment the night he died. But the USB date was current. Someone had placed these recently. A note at the bottom. Patricia, Edmund killed my husband David. I've waited 40 years for justice. Margaret Park Morrison, the twins' adoptive mother, David Park's wife. She'd known all along, raised his children for revenge, orchestrated everything. Patricia stood holding evidence of murders decades old. She could reopen everything, clear David Park, reveal Edmund as a serial killer, vindicate Jennifer. Or let the dead rest. She put everything back, sealed the wall. Some truths were too heavy. Some justice came too late. Driving away, she saw a figure in the lamp room in her mirror. Margaret Park Morrison, perhaps, still watching, or just light playing tricks. The Beacon Hill Lighthouse still stands. Tourists take photos, unaware of the bodies that once lay beneath. Locals tell ghost stories, not knowing how close to truth they come. Patricia knew the real ghost stories weren't about the dead. They were about the living who carried the weight of truth. Every person touched by this case carried ghosts. The lighthouse beam continues its eternal rotation, around and around, brief illumination in an ocean of darkness, just like justice, just like truth. Sometimes, late at night, the beam pauses, just for a moment, as if remembering that somewhere, someone else is planning justice for a crime the law can't touch. Because justice, like the lighthouse beam, never truly stops. It just waits for the right moment to illuminate what was always there, hidden in the darkness. The children of the wrongly accused and the rightly punished still walk among us. The truth has many layers, each one darker than the last. And the lighthouse keeps turning, indifferent to the secrets it has witnessed, the justice it has seen served, the lies that became truth, and the truth that became legend. In the end, Patricia realized everyone was guilty, everyone was innocent, everyone was both victim and perpetrator in an endless cycle of revenge and justice, truth and deception. The only true witness was the lighthouse itself, and it would never tell.